Imagine being raised to believe you are the son of a god, and being trained since childhood to rule the world. Before Alexander the Great conquered empires, he had to survive his parents, a ruthless father and a fiercely ambitious mother. Alexander was born in 356 BCE in Pella, the capital of ancient Macedonia. His father, King Philip II, was one of the most powerful and strategic rulers of his time, a man who transformed Macedonia from a weak kingdom into a military powerhouse. His mother, Olympias, was a princess from Epirus, passionate, deeply religious, and fiercely protective of her son. Olympias, born in Epirus, was a princess of the Molossian royal house, proud, spiritual, and fiercely ambitious. Deeply devoted to the gods, she was known for her passionate nature and for instilling in Alexander the unshakable belief that he was destined for greatness. Legend says that on the night Alexander was born, the temple of Artemis burned down, a sign, people said, that the god who protected heroes had left to watch over the birth of a new one. From the very start, Alexander's life was surrounded by myth and prophecy. Philip was a brilliant general, but a controlling and demanding father. He pushed Alexander relentlessly, expecting perfection in everything from horseback riding to military tactics. He often reminded his son that a king must prove himself through action, not birth. But his relationship with Olympias was very different. She adored Alexander and filled his mind with stories that he was descended from heroes, even from Achilles himself. She told him that Zeus, the king of the gods, was his true father. That belief, whether myth or manipulation, shaped Alexander's sense of destiny. This tug-of-war between his parents, Philip's harsh discipline, and Olympias' divine adoration, forged the complex personality of the future conqueror. He grew up torn between pleasing his father and living up to his mother's vision of greatness. At age 13, Alexander's education was entrusted to none other than Aristotle, the greatest philosopher of the age. For 3 years, Alexander studied philosophy, science, politics, and medicine. Aristotle taught him not only how to think like a ruler, but how to understand human nature. Alexander carried Aristotle's teachings throughout his life, and even took a copy of the Iliad on every campaign, sleeping with it under his pillow. But his training wasn't just intellectual. Philip made sure Alexander was physically and mentally tough. He hunted lions, trained in combat, and learned how to command men twice his age. By the time he was 16, Alexander had already led troops in battle, and won. Despite his achievements, Alexander's relationship with Philip grew increasingly strained. Philip's many affairs, and his plans for new heirs, infuriated both Alexander and Olympias. At one point, a public argument during a royal banquet nearly turned violent, and Alexander fled the court with his mother. Yet, even in rebellion, he couldn't escape his father's influence. Philip had taught him how to command armies, how to think strategically, how to lead. In a way, Alexander was Philip's masterpiece and his rival. When Philip was assassinated in 336 BCE, Alexander was just 20 years old. Many believed his mother had a hand in the plot, though it was never proven. Alexander immediately seized the throne, silenced his enemies, and prepared to fulfill the destiny his parents had carved for him, to conquer the known world. The young prince, molded by a father's control and a mother's love, was now king, and soon the greatest conqueror history had ever seen. Before he became a god in the eyes of men, Alexander was just a boy, shaped by power, passion, and the impossible expectations of two parents who saw greatness in him from the start. After his father died, Alexander became the undisputed king of Macedonia, a 20-year-old ruler standing at the edge of an empire his father had built, ready to expand it far beyond anything the world had ever seen. Alexander the Great was not just born to rule. He was forged by ambition, love, and conflict into a legend who would change the course of history forever. Thanks for watching. See you next week for a new chapter in history and another story that shaped our world.